There is freedom within, there is freedom without. Try to catch a deluge in a paper cup. There's a battle ahead, many battles are lost, but you never see the end of the road while you're traveling with me. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come, they come to build a wall between us. You know that they won't win. succession of cause they may suspicion, but there's no proof. In the paper today tells a warrant of waste, but you turn right over to the TV page. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. You know that they won't win. Walking again to the beat of the drum, and I'm counting the steps to the door of your heart. Only shadows ahead, barely clearing the roof. Get to know the feeling of liberation and relief. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. You know that they won't win. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da da da. Won't let the wind don't
Hello and welcome to another Wednesday evening here at Restore Live. Restore Live can out to Restore on Facebook, Restore UK that is, and on the British Unionist People's Voice on Facebook, and also on Restore UK on YouTube. Now, we're going to start the show this evening by saying something that doesn't normally actually happen. Let me just check. I've got a message here from one of our people just to see have we got we've got a technical issue, and if we've got it sorted out, we can move on. If not, I'll be back in a second. Just bear with me. Oh, right, okay. You can't get them, so just bear with me. Right, people. We'll have a jam-packed show lined up this evening, and we were looking at various subjects, and we spent all day downloading videos, putting videos together in order that we can play these videos so that we can lead in to the topics that we're going to be speaking about. Now, it transpires that the videos that was sent to someone to upload them, he can't actually get them for some reason or other. So what we're going to do here, and I can see Anto sitting in the background there also, is that I'm just going to play some music while we get this issue resolved. It shouldn't take too long. And anyway, I'll be back very, very shortly. So with plenty of music here that we can play on with whilst that it is that we look for the videos that we need to make this show proper this evening. So bear with us and we'll have this resolved very, very soon.
How can I protect you in this crazy world? You've got the words to change a nation, but you're biting your tongue. You spend a lifetime stuck in silence, afraid you say something wrong. If no one ever hears it, how we gonna learn your song? So come on, come on, come on, come on. You've got a heart as loud as lion, so well, let your voice be tame. Baby, we're a little different, there's no need to be ashamed. You've got the light to fight the shadows, so stop hiding it away. Come on, come on. I wanna sing, I wanna shout, I wanna scream till the words dry out. So put it in all of the papers, I'm not afraid. They can read all about it, read all about it. Oh, 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 and that we're waking up the neighbors while we sing away the blues, making sure that we remembered, yeah, 'cause we all matter too. If the truth has been forbidden, then we're breaking all the rules. So come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's get the TV and the radio to play our tune again. It's about time we got some airplay of our version of events. There's no need to be afraid, I will sing with you, my friends. Come on, come on. I wanna sing, I wanna shout, I wanna scream till the words dry out. So put it in all of the papers, I'm not afraid. They can read all about it, read all about it. Oh, 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 oh. 'Cause we were wonderful, wonderful people. So when did we all get so fearful? And now we're finally finding our voices. Just take a chance, come at me, sing this. Yeah, we were wonderful, wonderful people. So when did we all get so fearful? And now we're finally finding our voices. Just take a chance, come at me, sing this. I wanna sing, I wanna shout, I wanna scream till the words dry out. So put it in all of the papers, I'm not afraid. They can read all about it, read all about it. Oh, 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 I wanna sing, I wanna shout, I wanna scream till the words dry out. So put it in all of the papers, I'm not afraid. They can read all about it, read all about it. Oh.
We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see in the dark. We are searchlights, we can see We are rockets pointing up at the stars. We are billions of beautiful hearts. And you sold us down the river too far. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? Oh, what about us? What about all the plans that ended in disasters? What about love? What about trust? What about us? We are problems that want to be solved. We are children that need to be loved. We were willing, we came when you called.
A significant player on the international stage.
Enough is enough. Oh, what about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? Oh, what about us? What about all the plans that ended in disasters? What about love? What about trust? What about us? Sticks and stones, they may break my bones, but then I'll be ready. Are you ready? It's the start of
Thing that again, this is me trying to further, I guess, for the understanding for the people that is on this live chat. I mean, you mentioned the protocol.
Are you ready? I'll be ready. Now it's time to let them know we are ready. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever after? Oh, what about us? What about all the plans that ended in disasters? What about love? What about trust? What about us? What about love? What about trust? What about us?
Well, for the second time this evening, hello and welcome here to Restore UK live on a Wednesday evening. And this time we're here, but we had a huge technical problem there in where that some videos were sent to be uploaded and the videos didn't actually upload it, or they wouldn't download to a man in order to upload. So, you know, I mean, the best way to do things is to take the blame. So I'll give the blame solely to Jim. No, I'm only teasing. We had a technical difficulty, and that's the way it was. But here we are, and we've actually got it set up. We worked fairly hard in the background there to get everything set up in the way that it actually should be. So this evening, what we're going to do is we're not going to waste any time because we've wasted enough time here, and we're just going to cut straight to the chase and start it. So again, I'm just going to pop something up there from the live chat as I see. Watching from Loyalist South Belfast, that's Ann Wilson-Dixon. Ann, welcome to our screen. And also I see that there's a Protestant porter herself. Hello, Carol. So Isabel Montgomery, don't start on him. Who are you talking about? Jim, I'm assuming, or maybe you're not. How are you feeling now, Jim? Jim's actually good. So anyway, we're here and we're ready to start. So did I see another one there just a minute ago? Anyway, what we're going to do is let's give this a go. So this evening we've got a man called Anto Wicham, who's no stranger to your screen. And as you'll have watched the television in the past few days, you'll have noticed that there's huge problems in Afghanistan, and you do see that I'm going to say the asylum seekers, let's just say, are going to be on the move yet again. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk to a man who knows a lot about Afghanistan. And we've heard it on our television screens the past few days, where we've heard the likes of Doug Beattie, and Doug Beattie, nothing against the man other than he's a virtue signaller. And I'll stand by my words when I say that him and his party, what they like to do is they like to virtue signal. That's all they like to do. They're looking for a vote in any location that they can get it. And that's nothing to do with Afghanistan, of course. But I thought that I would mention that before that we move on. So we decided to bring a sensible guy on our screen this evening, someone who doesn't virtue signal, someone who's here to spell it out as it exactly is. And this is a man that has spent quite some time in Afghanistan. We're going to cut to the chase. We're going to bring him on our screen, and we're going to have a chat with reference the lay of the land and what is happening in Afghanistan. And we can talk about the Taliban, and we can talk about the regime. And, we'll spend a wee bit of time in this so that the people on our live chat, so that you get it here in the way that it should actually be told, as opposed to hearing it from the mainstream media and not knowing how to make head nor tail of things. Suffice to say, I have to say this, is that, when you look at America right now, and you see that Biden, what he has done is he's reversed what Trump had done. I mean, Trump came to power, and Trump came to power on the ticket of make America great again. And what he wanted to try to do was he wanted to try to put Americans first, and he wanted, jobs for Americans and to bring back the industry into America. And those are all honorable things to be able to do, because I'm a great believer in what you do is you protect your own country. And when you're elected into office by Americans, you're elected to serve and protect Americans. And that's where it really, really stops at the end of the day. And that's not to say that you can't be charitable. Whenever Biden took power, well, what he has done is he's reversed things in a way that if you see the videos in America right now, you'll see that they're flooding over the border from Mexico, and there's nowhere for these people to stay. And they're staying under bridges and in places out in the open. And it's a real pitiful, sorry state. So whenever you bring people to your country, first and foremost, you've got to ensure that you've got the places for those people to stay. And I say the charity begins at home. Not that I don't see what's happening in Afghanistan. Not that I don't see these people who genuinely are in need. Not that I don't understand that there were people who helped, whether it be Americans, whether it be British, whether it be people like Anto Wicham when we bring them on our screen. Not that I don't recognize that there are people who have put their lives in danger to actually do this. But I'm going to say something. I heard some of our politicians on the TV channel, on the radio just this last few days, and I can hear them saying, they have to come, you have to bring them in. And then some people are saying, but what about the people here that can't get houses because of the lack of housing? What about the fact that our hospitals are actually overburdened? But if you listen to some of these I'm going to say liberal politicians, well, they don't care. Why? Because they've got the money to live. They've got houses to live in. They're not waiting on a housing executive property or for, or maybe for medical treatment or whatever, because they can go and they can pay private. But what about the people who can't? What about the people who will be, let's just say, deprioritized as a result of what happened? So we thought that we just had to actually lay that out bare. And then what I want to do is that we want to find out what is happening in Afghanistan and why that it is that all of a sudden that the Americans, they have pulled out. And whilst Biden would actually say that it was Trump's fault, Biden's still done the same thing. as what Trump had suggested that he was going to do. So let's just play a little video clip. And on the back of this video clip, we're going to bring in Anto Wicham to talk about what is happening in Afghanistan and Anto's experience of that country throughout the many times that Anto has been back and forward to there. And I'm going to say that you might find it hard to find anyone or not very many people that would have visited Afghanistan as much as this man did. So this is an authority on Afghanistan to be able to tell us the lay of the land and exactly what is happening. So over to the video, and we'll be back in a few moments.
Capital after it was seized by the Taliban. U.S. forces are in control of the airport as Western countries send in planes to retrieve.
For 24 hours, Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport was overrun by thousands of people desperate to flee. At least 7 died, some of whom had climbed onto the exterior of a military plane and fell as it took off. The chaos delayed international evacuation efforts. A German transport jet had to abort its flight after waiting for the... As the Taliban take control of the rest of the city, U.S. President Joe Biden has threatened to use devastating force if they interfere with U.S. operations. Outside the airport, the new rulers are in complete control and have already begun hunting down their enemies.
Kabul residents are reporting the Taliban have already started house-to-house searches in some neighborhoods, registering names and looking for people in their target list. There are already reports of target killings and looting in the city. Kabul residents are living in absolute fear right now.
So, Anto, welcome to our screen yet again, and thanks very much for coming along to give your experience on Afghanistan, the type of country that it is, who the Taliban are, and why that it is that so many people would be in fear of their lives today. So, Anto, I know that you spent quite some time, as I given the intro there, in Afghanistan. So if you would just like to tell the people your experience with Afghanistan, what it is that you were doing there, and also, you know, you've been back and forward several times. I know that for a fact. So over to you, Anto. Take as long as you like, and just explain to people your take on Afghanistan and what it is that's happening right now.
Thanks very much, John, and thanks for inviting us on. And hello, everybody. Afghanistan. Yeah, I first went to Afghanistan in 2009. And I worked there right up until Christmas Eve 2020, 9 months ago. I was over there as a private contractor doing a number of roles, and that was helping companies, whether it be British companies or American companies, to help rebuild the country with infrastructure. And that would be anything from helping protect the people, the clients, as I'd call them, as they had done their work. Well, it'd be from farming, teaching them how to farm and bring the Afghan farmers into a more modern way of doing it instead of plowing fields with cows, introducing them to tractors, so on and so forth. Right through to my last job was an intel job, gathering in on a project so that my guys or the teams could go out and help, again, protect the engineers that were trying to put electricity into Afghanistan, with the field right around it, from going right across every province within Afghanistan, and so that every region would have electricity. I have a lot of friends who are Afghanis, obviously, because I've been there for almost 12 years. I was there most 12 years, 9 months of the 10 months of each year. So yeah, I've been in places such all across, basically every war province, should we say, Mazar, Kunduz, Kandahar, Lashnagar, Samagan, right up to the north, Badakhshan. So the whole way through the country I've lived, worked in, and seeing the people in various ways. And Afghanistan is a country full of tribes, where it's not like we perceive or the way we do business or the way we live. It's an Islamic state, and prior to the coalition going in and taking control of it, it was controlled by the Taliban. And the stories I was told by friends, that the fear they lived in at the time, were, girls couldn't go to school. They weren't allowed to go out and play. They couldn't go out on their own. They had to be chaperoned. Young boys would tell me that who worked with me, that when they would go out, they would be told or slapped around the side of the head why they didn't have a beard and why they're not in mosque, and they're only allowed to read the Quran. And they lived in fear even then. So when the coalition forces went in and got rid of the Taliban, these people got freedom. They got a little taste for 20 years of what we were born into. They could go to school. Children could go to school. Young girls could go to school. Can you imagine saying to your daughter or your granddaughter that she couldn't go out to play or she couldn't get educated because these people didn't believe it was right? That if you were on your own, they would arrest you. They would beat you up. At the age of 8, they would marry you off. If you done things wrong, they would stone you to death. If you were seeing a boy, and teenagers here, we grow up and you go out and you have a boyfriend and you're kids and you're messing about and you're playing in the parks. These people didn't have that, and they've had it for 20 years. Now, what happened politically? We can start pointing fingers at everybody. We all know that President Trump, when he was president, started talks behind the Afghan government's back to do a deal with the Taliban. He wanted to bring the American troops out of Afghanistan and home, because that was one of the pledges he made to the American people, and the American people voted for him, and a lot of the American people wanted the troops home. He bought a lot of troops out of the country in 2019, and then in the next election, Biden got in, and he kept that going. Against military advice, they said it was not time for the coalition to pull out. The coalition could not survive without the Americans, because the Americans had all the logistics. The planes, it was all the American logistics that were holding everything together. And without that, the UK and every other nation that was in there, the Germans, the French, the Dutch, the Swedes, nothing could work without America. And once America pulled the pin, then that was it. Now, that was fast forward, and the country was not ready. The military forces were not ready. And I listened to the news today and yesterday, and I listened to the president's speech that there was 300,000 armed, trained up military, Afghan type, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, you could argue about the numbers, whether it was 300,000 or really maybe at a push, you may have got 200,000, because there's things called ghost soldiers. And these were people that didn't exist, but the military commanders made them up to get more money. And that's what it was. They were saving enough money. The country was corrupt from the president down. And that's unfortunate. But we're talking about here and how the Taliban took control of a nation within 3 days, basically. Now, it shocked everybody. It even shocked me, because I said my last job there was doing INT and working for a company and trying to predict what was happening on the ground, with information coming in from the teams that I had deployed, gathering information to see what was happening. I said that once the coalition left, that within 9 months the Taliban would take control of the country again. That Afghanistan couldn't stand on its own, because it wasn't ready, and it wouldn't have been ready for another 20 or 30 years, because having ghost soldiers and the military that's not properly trained, it's already giving them everything, giving them weapons, giving them vehicles. They've got a small air force, but they haven't got the expertise to do all the training. A lot of people, when they went to America to do the training in the Air Force, a lot of them didn't come back. You know, a few would come back, but there was nothing ready enough to hold a nation, to have an Air Force to take on or control airspace properly. And the Taliban knew this, that once America pulled the pin and the forces went, there's no air cover, that they knew they could move with impunity and just walk into provinces and take it over. And we've seen that in Mazar, we've seen that in Kandahar, and Kandahar was a birthplace of the Taliban, and they were able to walk in. Now, people are saying, why didn't the Afghan forces fight back? Well, their morale for the last 2 or 3 years was really, really on the ground, because they knew the Americans were pulling out. They knew the Taliban were getting stronger. They were taking provinces by provinces, district by district, every single day. They would surround areas and control it for months, and mortar major cities like Herat for 8 or 9 months, and go in and take what they want and come out. And then take control of major roads and junctions, so the military forces couldn't get in there to help. So they had no fear of being bombed by the air. So the Afghan forces who were demoralized, they didn't have ammunition, because the logistics wasn't there to get the ammunition to them when they were fighting. And so they handed their weapons down. They'd done deals with the Taliban when they were coming in, that they would not kill them if they surrendered, and then some of them just disappeared at night. And that always happened. We had reports, you know, that on Afghan military bases, guys would just disappear. And they're also, as well, infiltrated by the Taliban for 15 years or so, where the Taliban had actually sent people in to join the Afghan military. And then once they're in there, we would have what we'll call blue on blue, where the Taliban would then get a phone call from their leaders to say, right, kill whoever's in there now, take their weapons, and they'll overrun the place. And that was happening constantly. So that's maybe why you can see it, the Afghan military basically running away and laying weapons down, because they feared for their lives. There's no way could they take on the mass of the Taliban. And for example, I'll give an example. When the Taliban go to an outpost, okay, there may be the 40 or 50 Afghan police or military in there, the army. The Taliban would attack that. 300 or 400 Taliban would attack that post. So these people didn't have much of a chance. So the fear factor come in, the morale was down, and they just give up. And they went into the night shadows and disappeared, because they'd have been killed, they'd been massacred. Also the Taliban, I've met Taliban, I've spoke to Taliban because of the job I was doing, because I had guys traveling about. They kidnapped 5 of my guys about a year and a half ago, 2018. They were moving from Kandahar up to Herat, and I had a team staying there in a villa who were working from it. And the Taliban took control of Herat, mortared and bombed the place, and my guys were missing for 5 days, and I feared the worst for them. The cars we had had tracking devices on them, so hidden, so they couldn't be seen, obviously. The cars didn't move for 2 days, and suddenly they started to move, and they were going all over the map, and they were thinking, well, what's happening? And then once that said to me, right, the guys are dead, and that the Taliban got the car, because it was going up and down major roads, it was going off roads, it was staying in outbuildings, because we were tracking on the satellite system. We're looking on Google Earth and going in to see where the terrain was, and it was going cross country, and it was coming back, and I thought, the Taliban were just using the car to spin about in. Then on the 5th day, again, every 20 minutes or so, I was getting the guys to call the phone to see if the guys would answer it. And then on the 5th day, the phone was actually answered, and it was 5 guys were fine. And what actually happened is the Taliban were looking after them and moving them about with 3 other 100 prisoners that they'd gathered, because in the Taliban days, they have always been a legitimate government. They run a shadow government. They would actually take tax and issue payments. They would take, they said to our guys that they'd want tax or road tax, and the guys would have to give them money, and then they would give them a receipt to say they'd paid for it, and it was officially stamped, so on and so forth. They actually had the capability, because I got ID cards made up for my guys which said they worked for the Afghan electric company and that they weren't security personnel. And the Taliban were actually able to go on a radio and confirm that these guys were actually issued these cards properly. So they weren't just a ragtag bunch of terrorists. They were on a shadow government, and they believed that they were the whole time. Don't get me wrong, I have no time for them whatsoever, but to talk with them and negotiate with them so I could do my job, my guys could do their job on the ground, is something that had to be done. The Afghan government done it. There's places that we had to go into to do work where the Taliban would escort us in, look after us, and escort us out. But if you upset them in any shape or form, it'd be simple. They would just take you out, and that means the end of your life. Fast forward to how quickly they've done it. As I said, nobody expected it. Now, the intelligence that's out there between our own forces, the British and the Americans, I just find that crazy. I just don't get it. It just doesn't compute. The intelligence didn't give a warning for this, because the Taliban within 3 days were in the capital, and I thought, right, they've got the Kabul, maybe I thought militarized. What they're going to do is they'll surround it, because Kabul sits in a bowl and there's mountains the whole way around it. So they could have done what they've done before and just get in the top of it and then mortar the city for days or weeks. But they were able just to walk in overnight and within hours in the palace, sitting there, saying they were now in control. No bloodshed, not a round was fired. They just walked in because the military run scared, and that's the bottom.
Andrew, can I just ask you a question there? But I mean, you say that you find it sort of incomprehensible that these people were able to do what they'd done, and how that everybody moved off and everything went and moved sweetly. And now the Americans and the British, as far as I can see, they're hung up in the airport, and they're bringing people out. But whenever I mentioned at the very, very start, I talked about Biden and how that he's put the walls down in America, and how that people have just flooded into America, open door policy sort of thing. Again, I'm not putting words in your mouth or whatever, but is that the type of thing that you're thinking along the lines of, that there's a deal done and that's it, and they're away and the Taliban are going to take over? I mean, can you comment on that in any way that you can?
I don't think there's a deal been done. The Taliban just outmoved everybody, and they knew that the morale within the Afghan forces was so low. And again, looking at it, they've infiltrated them forces over the years. So people who were standing there meant to be on duty as a soldier or a policeman, a lot of them would have been Taliban, and they've said, these people aren't down out here. We can just walk in here. And that's what's happened. Now, I was so surprised when I seen the Americans. I've been in the American embassy many a times in Kabul. I worked for the Canadians in Kabul in their embassy, looking after the diplomats there for 4 years. And I was in and out of the American embassy 3 or 4 times a week, if not 3 or 4 times a day most of the time. And that is one of the most fortified embassies in the world. The security on it, the walls on it, you couldn't have blown up if you tried. There was a good kind of half standoff before anybody could have got to it. For them to run away, and that's what they did, run away in fear overnight and helicopter everybody out. I just thought, this can't be happening. This isn't real. I just couldn't get it. And again, it's the drawdown of troops that couldn't support it. So everybody went to the safest place because the coalition controlled the airport. You've got the civvy side to it. You have the runway. On one side, you've got the civilian side. And then on the other side, you've got the military side. We call it Kaya North. And that's where the military headquarters would be. And that's fortified. And that's how you're seeing the Afghan people into the military planes, because they'd have run to the airport and just run across the airfield to the military side of it from the civilian side. And this was fear. These people were trying to escape because they know they're going to be killed. These people may have been a dishwasher. Just like we think, I kept saying the Afghans the whole time I was there, I understand their plight because I come from Northern Ireland. We had issues with terrorists. These types of people would have been a chef, a dishwasher, a cleaner, a driver. And the people that we had here who done the same in Northern Ireland, who went to military bases and fixed things for us and done building works in it and were chefs, probably if they weren't military chefs and cleaners. These were these same type of people. And these people were running for their lives because they knew that if the Taliban, regardless the professional liars they are, tell the world, oh, everybody's going to be okay, there's an amnesty and everybody can get on, we're just taking over again. These people would have been hunted down and killed. I have been non-stop on my phone for the last 2 days with this, and we're emotional here. I have friends there who can't get out, crying to me on the phone, asking for help. Can I assist them to get free? The Taliban are going around flats, buildings, trying to drag them out, calling their names out, hunting them down, wanting anybody at work for any coalition there, and they can't get out. Now, I know that the embassies have took certain people out who work for them, interpreters, so on and so forth, because their lives are at risk. And I know for a fact that the Canadian embassy have got the majority of their people out, and that was, the bottle washers, the cleaners, the drivers. There's some are still there because the process wasn't done. They've still got to do the process, the checks and everything else. Now, these people who are trying and on to me, and I'm trying to help the best I can, and they're asking for letters to prove their work for me and they work for a British company, etc., etc. I understand people's fear, because I fear it as well, because instead of opening borders, this time we need to closing borders, because there's a possibility that people who want to do us harm could try and infiltrate and come in as a refugee. And I understand that. But these people that we're trying to get out, they've been, their security clearance, they've been biometrics, they've been, everything about them would have been checked out, because they've been working for the Brits, the Americans, the Canadians, the Germans, the French, you name it, for 10, 15, 20 years. And they're very intelligent young people, and they just want to be free, because know if they stay there, that them, their children, their wives, their mothers are all going to be killed. And that's the bottom line. Now, and people just want to get out of the place because they know what's going to happen. There's today, again, I have a friend there, a Swiss reporter, is a good friend of mine. I met when I was out there, and I worked with him when he was doing reports, because he was embedded with the Taliban at times, and stay with them for 3 or 4 months at a time and report back, and I used to talk to him about them, so on and so forth. And I got in touch with him over the last couple of days to see how he is, and he's safe, and he is in Kabul now. And today I asked him, I said, what's happening? He says everything's good. He just got back in time to see the fall of the city. He couldn't believe it himself. He says, but everything's at the minute as normal as we would know it. He says, but the Taliban have got total control. People cannot move without being stopped and checked. People try to put the Afghan flag up and they were shot. Yeah. These people, try to remove the Taliban flag, and they're standing there with an Afghan flag, and these animals shot them.
Yeah. And Anto, conscious here, and it's not your fault, but because we had our technical problems at the start, and we've actually 4 subjects to get through here this evening. But just on closing, I want to ask you really a question, and I did hear on the radio today, specifically BBC Radio Ulster, just after 9 o'clock this morning, where people were talking about, should we be opening up and should we be bringing these people in whenever our own people are under so much pressure? There's a lot of people who are homeless. There's a lot of people that need hospital treatment. They say that the hospitals are overburdened, they're underfunded, and you know the story, Anto. But to cut a long story short, we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that there are people that are genuinely in need. But you could forgive people for thinking that when they see the dinghies coming across the channel on a daily basis and nobody seems to be doing anything about it, and you see hotels being filled with migrants, and you see the way that it's happened in America, where they've just opened up the floodgates and permitted these people to just flood in a way that then everybody ends up under pressure. I mean, what do you have to say about that, Anto, given that you have been in Afghanistan, and I fully understand that you've got good friends there and whatever else, and I would just like you to explain to the live chat your take. Now, there's 2 minutes to do so because at the top of the hour, we're moving on. Over to you, Anto.
I understand people's worry and fears, and about, I was actually talking this today to somebody, we were having a chat about it, and to me, we need to bring these people home, or give them a new home, because their lives are at risk. This isn't about an immigrant. These are proper refugees. They're not the people who come across the channel who are doing it for money and to get here and destroy our lives. These people are living in fear. To me, I don't see now a race. I see this as a human being, and we need to get them human beings and save their lives. But when they come here, I understand, because, you know, thinking today, and I heard the Nolan show today, and people talking about, we have people here homeless. We do need to help them. We have enough houses here for our own, never mind other people, but we can't leave them there to die. You know, we've got to help out. Now, there's places in this country throughout the UK which are lying empty, which the government could put funding into to open them up and make them into living quarters. We've got military bases sitting empty. They could go in there, they could help to transform them places whilst their status is going through. And I totally get it. We can't just give everybody houses, and we've got our own people suffering. We've got our homeless, we've got veterans suffering, living on the street, and mental issues, so on and so forth. But we still have to help this small amount of people who are lives are at risk, who put their own lives at risk to help us. When I was there, I've been in firefights with these people. These people would die to save my life, and I've been there, and I think it'd be totally wrong to turn our back on them. They've done a lot for us. Now, the British government at the start wouldn't let interpreters into the UK. There had to be a whole row about that to get the interpreters. Now, and I totally understand, but these other people are human beings like you and I. They're just normal people, and they deserve a chance to come in. Not every single Afghani has to come here. A lot of them want to stay here. Already in Pashtun, I know Masood's son has got a gang together, soldiers heavily trained in the Northern Alliance who are prepared now to attack the Taliban. This country's going into civil war, but I do believe we'll have to help. But then, you know, what gives here? Well, the government are going to have to start funding it properly. The government are going to have to throw money at this to make sure that our health service can provide for it, that there is accommodation for our people as well. And we just can't hand it all over to refugees, but we'll have to help them. We'll have to bring them here, because they put their lives in the line to help people like me, to take care of our soldiers when they were serving. I know friends who have been killed. I have friends now on the phone, as I said, fearing for their lives, begging me, can I get them out? I don't have that power. I don't have the influence to write to somebody and say, look, leave it with me. I'm doing my best to try and point them in the right direction. They're not going to get out. And the governments can talk all they want, John, and I'll speed up here. The Taliban control, there's no way can these people get to the airport. The Taliban's going to tell the world they're open and they've changed, so on and so forth. I wouldn't believe a word of it, because they know the world's watching. If they do something wrong now, NATO will pound that place. And that's what they fear. They will lie through their teeth. They'll tell them everybody's everything all right. They're already, I know it for a fact because I'm in contact with people, they're now going through building by building, door to door, and ripping people out, and they're disappearing at night. Ask anybody who walked and talked to anybody who went there to help that nation. And I think we have an obligation as human beings to look after these people. Now, these are not in the same boat as these people are coming from France over to England, the dinghies. This is a different type of people, and I think we'll have to help them. But I think borders.
Good point, Anto. Anto, there's just a few things that we'll have to do, and we really have to move on. And please accept my apologies that we do. But I would like to say just one thing. This was a quote from the Nolan show this morning. Whenever Nolan was saying, But these people 20 years ago were throwing gays off buildings. They oppress women and they do this and that. And then some guy says, well, didn't the IRA, cause problems like that 20 years ago? What's the difference? Well, Nolan was actually differentiating between the fact that the IRA are child murderers. So, but we're moving on to that in the very, very near future. I thought that was a really good point that guy actually made. And Nolan was actually almost defending what it was that the IRA done, because they're not willing to take them on, but they're willing to really emphasize what the Taliban were doing. And as you said, you've actually just educated me, and I think the rest of the live chat, into the fact that these people, some good people, they need to be brought back, but they also need to be vetted. We just can't let anyone into the country, and I would say that would have to happen. I just want to pop this up by Wilson Hippie McMullen here. Okay, if we take them in, they have to leave the culture behind, because they treat women, young girls and young boys like dirt, and it just isn't the Taliban. Wilson, a lot of people would share those sentiments at the end of the day. I mean, we're a different culture entirely, and we don't want to see a two-tier system here, whereby that there's some places which has Sharia law, and there's some people which has our law, our Western values and everything else. So I would say that integration would actually be the key if we bring a lot of these people here. Andrew, just in a few words, go ahead, just close on that, and we'll move on to the next thing.
Just to comment on what Wilson said there, these people are coming out, the people I'm trying to set to get out, these people are Westernized as you and I. They despise the Taliban, they despise that side of Islam where these people abused women and children and gays and so on and so forth. Seriously, these people are as Westernized as you and me. Their religion, their faith is Islam, and they're not like every Islam or Islamic fundamentalist Fruit Loop out there. These people despise them. They despise them as much as I despise terrorists in the IRA here, as and normal decent people would do. These people are the same, but trust me, every Muslim, everybody that follows Islam is not a fundamentalist like the Taliban. And 100%, they did throw people off buildings. I could tell that many stories, young lads who work for me who've been abused by the Taliban, the way they take young boys away and make them dance for and so on and so forth. It's repugnant, it's disgusting. But these people are as Western in their values as you and I, and that's the God's honest truth.
Andrew, thanks very much for letting us know, really, and telling us what when you scratch the surface, what is really happening in Afghanistan. On just one more note before that we move on, but should we be bringing these people back, looking after them whenever we have Gurkhas on our doorstep prepared to go into hunger strike to get a decent standard of living from the British government, or should both things be done in tandem?
The bottom line is, should come here. On the veteran side, where our Gurkhas, I've served the Gurkhas, and the bravest of the brave, our British government should hang their heads in shame. It's a disgrace that they come from Nepal, the course that they've got to do, even just to get elected to go to the British Army to start their training. It's like SAS selection. It's unbelievable. And then they come here, they get abused by our government. They're allowed to go home once a year. And then they say because they live so far away. In today's modern world, you can fly around the world in 12 friggin' hours. Yet they're telling these people to go home for a month every 6 months. Then they didn't get the same pay. Then they didn't get pension rights. And now they've told them they can't live in the country they've served, where they've went into wars from Afghanistan, Iraq, Kosovo, Northern Ireland. When they brought them here, they took them out because these people didn't like the terrorists here. They brought the kukris out and cut their heads off. These people are warriors, and to treat them the way our government has is a disgrace. And I do not want to see any of those brave men hurt themselves, get liver damage, and shorten their lives because of this hunger strike. Our government needs to get off its ass, and it needs to get a grip and give these people, anybody who serves in the military, regardless whether it be Fijians or Gurkhas who come from a Commonwealth, if they serve our nation, they have a right to live here, to settle here with their family, because they've served our nation with pride. And I think it's just an utter disgrace. So yes, they should come here, but our government, at a stroke of a pen, can turn around and say, Gurkhas, we apologise. You have a right to stay here and make it so. That's it.
Yeah, Andrew, well said, and thank you very much for saying that. I mean, take my hat off to you. You will see that myself and Jack Ross, we've done a programme on the Gurkhas last Thursday evening, and I have to say, well, Jack basically educated me on their plight, and I have to say that it's something that we must follow. And I did notice that one of the people that are on hunger strike, he actually took a heart attack from my belief yesterday, but apparently he's back in the pen again, and he's feeling fine. So we're watching that with a hawk-like eye. So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to move on. Anto, for the purpose of no feedback here, I'm just going to mute your mic, and we'll bring you back in whenever I finish speaking. So there's the mic muted. So people, what were we here for? We were here to talk about Afghanistan. We were here to talk about the GAA. And also we were here to talk about, we've 4 subjects really to scratch the surface on, and we'll have to stay until these subjects are done, because we didn't put the time and the effort into looking at the videos, looking for the videos, downloading the videos and putting it all together for not to do it. But it's going to be an interesting show from here on in. And I know that we've got a man just sitting in front of us here on the screen with me that will be able to comment on each and every one of these items that we're going to talk about. So what we're talking about now is that we're going to talk about the GAA versus, say, for example, the GAA versus football, Irish football here, and how that the GAA seem to have a hierarchy of rights in terms of the funding that they get, and how that it is that they're looked after, but everyone else isn't looked after in the way that they should be. So we're talking about namely a thing called Casement Park. Casement Park is a huge, well, it's a GAA ground in the planning right now. And, you know, there's a huge amount of money that's about to be spent on Casement Park. Now, I would like for you to watch this video. And in this little video clip, you're going to understand, and I've entitled this video, "The Unfairness of the Appeasement Process Continues." And whenever I say appeasement process, I'm going to link this to other things so that everyone is left in absolutely no doubt that there are people in Northern Ireland right now, and they destabilize this place. They add insult to the injury of their victims, and yet everything that they ever get involved in, they are given in a way to appease them, to stop them from rattling the cage and threatening to go back to murdering people. Let's just watch this video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
A significant player on the international stage, or are we really just a bit too small to compete?
When you think about it, Mark, that the last time Northern Ireland got such global coverage was a few months ago with the protocol riots. You know, this is the sort of publicity, this is the sort of worldwide publicity that we want to see. But on your other point, our stadiums are still too small. I mean, Windsor Park obviously had 70% of the capacity, but the capacity is only 18,000. Same with the Kingspan Stadium in rugby, 18,000. And then, of course, we're talking about Casement Park going to be built, and that will be the biggest stadium in Northern Ireland at 34,000 people. But it hasn't been built yet, and we can talk about a Super Cup, and I'm sure a Super Cup will come back to Belfast sometime in the future. But unfortunately, the chances of a Champions League final, there's no chance of the Champions League final. The capacity just isn't big enough. You need at least 30,000, maybe even 40,000 to host a Champions League final.
Now, maybe you just have heard what that man on the radio was actually talking about, and that's a sports commentator from the Belfast Telegraph, from my recollection. Now, what he will have been talking about, and let's just recap on what you just heard there. Well, you see, Windsor Park is meant to be the national stadium of Northern Ireland to host the big football games. And just last week there was, there was a big football game, and this is why they were talking about the Windsor Park. They were also talking about the Kingspan Stadium, which hosts Ulster Rugby in Ravenhill. And also they're talking about this proposed site for Casement Park, which is the local GAA ground. Now, here's the rub, and understand this very, very clearly so that we can get this in context. What that sports commentator was saying was that we won't gain, or we won't be able to attract the big football games because the national stadium can only hold 18,000 people. Now, let's just break this down. And they're saying that Ulster Rugby, it is exactly the same. It only holds 18,000 people. Now, by contrast, we have Casement Park, which can hold 35,600 and I think it's 29 people. You'll see it in this screen in a second or two. But you see, what has happened with Casement Park is actually double the capacity in terms of putting people in than the actual national stadium. Now, this has to be talked about, and I'll tell you why this has to be talked about, because what are our politicians doing whenever we have the national stadium, which can only hold 18,000, and yet we have a stadium which Republicans became involved in fighting for, and yet that stadium can hold, or will be able to hold, 35,600 and I'm going to say 22 people in and around that figure. Don't quote me exactly, but that's roughly the figure. Now let's break down the costs of what that it cost to renovate and rebuild Windsor Park, and also the cost of what it would have cost to renovate and rebuild the Kingspan Stadium, which is Ulster Rugby. And now let's look at what it would cost, what it is proposed that it will cost for Casement Park. And then we're going to go into more things about Casement Park in a second. But you see, it cost £29.2 million to renovate and to put together and to build new stands at Windsor Park, which is the national stadium. Now, this is the place where a lot of the money, or the biggest amount of money, should have been put into. That's because it's a national stadium for holding national events. But yet here we have Windsor Park, which can only hold 18,000 people, with this amount of money being 29.2 million being spent on it. And when you look at Ulster Rugby, well, there was £20 million spent there, and it can still hold 18,000 people. But now focus on the national stadium. Now let's look at Casement Park. It is estimated somewhere between 115 to 140 million is going to be spent on Casement Park, and Casement Park can hold almost double the capacity of Windsor Park. Now, 18,000 and 18,000 is 36,000 capacity, but look at Casement Park on its own, 35,600 and I think it's 22 people. So here we have the national stadium, which is Windsor Park, which cost 29.2 million. Casement Park, which is estimated to be costing somewhere between 115 and 140 million. And here we have Windsor Park, which is the national stadium, only being able to hold 18,000 people, and yet Casement Park is holding double that. And when you look at the cost comparison, that's almost 5 times the amount of money going to be spent on Casement Park, public money, I may add, that was spent on the national stadium. Now, who do we blame for this? Ask yourself the question. What are our politicians doing? How is it that, that anything that Republicans or nationalists are involved in, well, you see, they get what they want. What are our politicians doing? What are they doing? That's a real question. What are they doing? And then we look at the Irish language. We look at the Irish language alongside, say, for example, Ulster Scots. And we look at the funding that the Irish fraternity would get, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds. And we'll break those figures down at a later stage. And then we look at, say, Ulster Scots. And by comparison, the amount of money that the Ulster Scots fraternity would get would be minuscule compared to what it is that the Republicans and the Nationalists have actually argued for and got. So there we asked another question. What are our politicians doing? Namely, the DUP. Doug Beattie. Is he too busy virtue signalling, perhaps? Chasing every woke agenda that comes down his line in order that he could attract the vote? Is he just too busy to be arguing for and on behalf in a way that would meaningfully and proactively defend, protect and enhance Britishness here in Northern Ireland? What are our politicians doing whenever you look at these figures and you break those figures down? So let's just play this again, and then we're going to go into some more about the GAA, just to show you something, just to show you that, well, we'll ask the question, are the IRA involved in the GAA? Do the GAA glorify terrorism, Do they glorify child murderers? Are they a sectarian organisation? Why then the funding? Let's play on and we'll talk some more.
So the infrastructure has improved immensely over the last 20 years, but still, and the capacity for hotels as well, but the stadium size will hold it back for a lot of things.
You mentioned Casement Park there. In theory, it's going to be built by the year 2024, and as you say, it'll have a capacity of 34,500. That's almost double the capacity of any other stadium here, certainly in Northern Ireland. What more could we get when Casement is built?
Well, first of all, we're still way behind Dublin when you or the Republic when you think about it. We know the Aviva has 51,700 if I'm not mistaken, and also Croke Park has 82,300. Now Croke Park, as you know, has.
Now, there's something very interesting that I have to scroll back to so that we can talk about it just a bit more. Now, there we go. Because of ongoing Republican appeasement, Windsor Park can't host big games, but Casement Park can. Now, if you just bear with me for 2 seconds, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up something here from a man on our screen who has hit the nail absolutely on the head. Casement Park will become Northern Ireland's national stadium. It's just another nail. Well done, DUP, UUP and PUP, disgusted at our unionist politicians. Wilson, I find it hard to argue with you. I couldn't argue with you because the reality is that this man will go on to say that whenever a big game is needed here in Northern Ireland, it'll be going to Casement Park because of the capacity to hold the 34,400 or whatever it was. Just don't worry about the quoting of the figures. It was on our screen. It is right on our screen. And if I just don't get it right, we know that it was almost 35,000 capacity set against the 18,000 capacity in Windsor Park. So, Wilson, you're absolutely right, and I did have to pop that up. So let's just talk a wee bit more, and then we're going to go to Anto for some commentary once we get over this.
Park has 82,300. Now, Croke Park, as you know, has, whenever the Aviva was being rebuilt, or Lansdowne Road as it used to be called, Croke Park held a couple of Ireland rugby games effortlessly. Now, the irony is the UK and Ireland will be bidding to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup, and Northern Ireland will want to be part of that. Although I see a situation where a World Cup game from the 2030 World Cup could actually would take place more likely in Casement Park than Windsor Park because of the capacity.
Now, again, I just have to lead a bit of commentary over that, but, you know, what are our politicians doing? Do they not see that this is what's happening? Do they not understand that these people are being unfairly enhanced and whilst British Unionists here in Northern Ireland are being demonised, diminished and trodden into the ground, whilst our politicians, look, here's it is in front of you. Is this another fine mess? Because Jeffrey Donaldson was in power with Arlene Foster. And if it's not another fine mess, well, maybe Jeffrey needs to come and explain to us why that it is that everything that these people get far outweighs what it is that British Unionists here in Northern Ireland actually get. And I have a saying, and I'm just going to say this saying again, is that these people, they don't fight meaningfully or proactively and in a way that would defend, protect, most importantly, and enhance Britishness here in Northern Ireland. Are they up to the job? Are they worthy of being our leaders? Are they worthy of being your leader? I asked that to the live chat. If you'd just like to leave a bit of commentary in the live chat as we go. Now, we're just going to finish this little video and then we're going to show you three still photos, 3 JPEG photos, just to show you what I believe, what others believe that Casement Park actually will become. Will it become a shrine to terrorism? We'll leave that for your thoughts whenever we finish what we're doing.
And that's the ironic thing, you know, our actual football stadium is too small. I mean, whenever these things happen, there's the build-up to them. It's not just the game itself. there's 2 or 3 days of build up where the world's media come over and they look around Belfast and they look around Northern Ireland and they see good things, and that is a good thing.
So, okay, right, now that we've got this Casement Park video out of the road there, I'm just going to take it off my screen. So if you just bear with me for a sec. I have to do this because there's that many videos and I don't want to be hitting the same one yet again. So remove from studio. Okay, so now that we've seen what's happening here, where the GAA, who incidentally or coincidentally, they named their grounds after IRA terrorists. They name their cups after IRA terrorists. They name their teams after IRA terrorists, whether that be terrorists in the past or whether they use their grounds and they use their teams to further enhance IRA terrorism. And in a way that what it does is that it adds insult to the injury of their victims. Now, I was talking to a victim last night, someone who was involved or who was in a bomb in Glenanne, the UDR base, when IRA terrorists, when they rolled a motor, it was a lorry from my recollection, down a hill into the base, blowing up and killing several people. And we hope to be bringing that story to your this screen very, very soon. And that's the type of thing that really adds insult to the injury of those people's memories whenever people are turning a blind eye, whether that be our politicians, whether that be those that we elect, or whether that be the British government, or whether that be the mainstream media, whenever they turn a blind eye to IRA terrorism as they glorify and continue to glorify murder and mayhem, and in a way that should not be happening in any civilized society. And just again, I must add that it's totally goes against the terrorism laws that are available today for glorifying terrorism. So let's just move on for a few minutes, and then we're going to bring Anto in. And what I want to do is I want to actually show you three little still pictures, JPEG pictures, just to ask a question as I put these pictures. Now here we go. Sorry, there's 2 on our screen. You mind, earlier on we had some problems uploading things, so there's 2 here on our screen. Now I'm going to show you one photo. I'm going to comment. I'm going to talk over it. Okay, so here we have the Bobby Story funeral. Here we have, you see where these people are coming from to the right-hand side? They're walking out of Casement Park to bury Bobby Story. They're walking out of Casement Park. I'll say that again, Casement Park. That's Casement Park, which is going to receive somewhere between 115 and 140 million of monies whenever hospitals are falling apart, whenever there's lack of housing, whenever there's a lot of problems in our country, whenever they say that they don't actually have the money to go around the services. And here we have just another squander. And whenever you can take and whenever you can understand that what happened was the National Football Stadium, it got 29.2 million, and yet Casement Park is seeking to get 140 million potentially of public money. Well, if I would be telling a lie, because I think that what has happened is I think the GA has offered to put 15 million in, but this cost has increased and increased and increased and increased again. And the question is that will our politicians permit this to happen? Will they permit this to happen? Will this just be another fine mess brought about by the unwillingness of the DUP and the unwillingness of the virtue signalling UUP? Ask yourself that question. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to now change pictures, and we're going to show you picture number 2. Sorry. Now, this is picture number 2 inside the Casement Park. As you'll see to the left there, you'll see the stand, and you'll see the big lights that will light up the pitch there. And there is the IRA actually forming up in the grounds of Casement Park when they were going to, as Mary Lou McDonald would have said, they were going to celebrate the life, this is me paraphrasing, of their leader Bobby Story, the leader of the IRA Army Council. And we all know the history in the past that Bobby Story actually had. So here we are. Here are the Republicans. They've got their little Republican badges on. They've got their little Republican ties on. And there you go. They're inside Casement Park. They're forming up. I ask a question. Who facilitated that to happen? Was that Casement Park? Was that the GAA? Are the GAA working hand in glove with IRA terrorists, with IRA terrorism? Now, I'm going to say something else with reference to the day that Bobby Story get buried. But there was actually, wasn't there a flag that was flying from Casement Park for Bobby Story? And I didn't have the time to go back and get that flag. But ask yourself a question, when we put in one hand the victims of IRA terrorism, and then when we put on the other hand IRA terrorists themselves, and these people should be in jail for the murder and the mayhem that they actually caused, for the child murder that they caused, for the indoctrination of children, for the destabilizing of this country. But here we have, not only are they not in jail, not only do they have immunity from prosecution, not only do they get everything that they want in a way that dwarfs what British Unionism in Northern Ireland actually gets. But not only all of that, but these people continue to use, say, for example, the GAA to glorify terrorism. And should any public money be going towards an organisation that, are you ready for it? Who remembers the guns on the streets in 2019 and 2020 when they were firing over IRA coffins, glorifying terrorism? Who remembers that there were 2 people murdered by this exact organisation in 2015, December 2015, when there was a fallout between the same organisation, and one was shot in the markets and another one was shot in Short Strand? And yet our politicians are turning a blind eye whilst these people, whilst they enhance their terrorist operation, including the GAA, with public money. Anto, it beggars belief, and I thought that just had to be shown in the way that it was shown, and I thought that just had to be said. So Anto, over to you for some commentary, and tell us what you see. Tell us, are you disgusted? Tell us, over to you, Anto.
I remember when this first started a few years back, when the National Stadium was being discussed, and it was talking about doing it at the Maze. And I thought that the Maze would have been the perfect place for a National Stadium. Then the issue was, because all agreed that it'd be used for every sport, and it could be used for equestrian and so on and so forth. And it'd be a beautiful stadium where it could go up and down and have everything. And then the Republicans tried to then have a shrine because they wanted to use the part of the Maze where Bobby Sands had died, that wing, the hospital wing, as a museum. And they're going to have ex-tourists taking people around in tours, and the way you do it, Belson, but they're going to glorify the tourism there. Now, whether the loyalists have had their wee part as well to tell their side of the story, I really don't know. But at that time, it was, right, I'll go and blow the building up myself so they can't do it, because that's what went through my head at the time. He says they can't have something there if it's not there for them to have it on. But our unionist politicians at the time said it was never happening, not going to do it. So where we're at today, the money then went into Windsor Park and rebuilt it. Now, remember when they were doing Windsor Park, they found issues with it, and there's a whole outcry where the extra money is going to come from that, from the Republicans and Sinn Féin. And off the top of my head, I can't remember where the actual extra funding come from. But when you look at the funding, and as you said, it's totally unbalanced, because Windsor Park, you say, I think it was around 29 million in total. The original Casement Park was going to be 77 million, 62 million from the government, 15 from the GAA. And then there was talk about making it bigger and the cost of it now, because I think originally they're going to make it more people go into it and then they cut the size down because residents are not happy. The residents in that area are not happy. They don't want this monstrosity of a some of these people will not see sunlight ever again in their gardens. So they're going to demonstrate, and I believe they're still going to demonstrate as much as they can. But we know that'll be futile because it's going to go ahead. And it's the cost and the size of it. Now, I remember, again, going back when it was first talked about, when are they ever going to fill that stadium to play a game in? And that's a Gaelic game. Because the GAA, everything's done in the main one down in Dublin. Everything's there. All the finals are there. Everybody has to go there. They may allow what they call an Ulster final to be held in that park, but because of their rules, it goes about from stadium to stadium every way they work it out. So maybe once in every 2 or 3 years, a major Gaelic final will be played in that stadium. So how many is it going to hold week in, week out? Let's be generous and say 10, 15,000. So it's sitting there empty most of the time. And then, as people have said, so what will it be used for? And again, people have hit it in the head. They'll try and bring big football games here. They'll try and say, well, we've a stadium here in Northern Ireland to hold big national games. Will that be enough to get unionists to go and watch a game in a stadium which is named after a terrorist? I don't think I'd be putting my shilling in the box to go and watch any concert, any football game. I don't care if it's the World Cup final, if it's going to be in a stadium that's named after a terrorist that glorifies terrorism, because I just couldn't do it. The GAA aren't going to change their tune and renaming grounds, because that's just taking their history in the way they name their stadiums after terrorists and their trophies after terrorists. So it just beggars belief in how this has been allowed to happen. Now, it's their stadium, they can call it what they want. But again, reading between the smokes and mirrors and planning ahead, we know in years to come that the islands of Great Britain and Ireland are going to bid for a major football tournament to hold games in it. The only stadium that's going to be viable of that, as you said, is Casement Park. So between trying to host a game there, as I said, repeat myself again, who's going to go into it? Will they try and put Northern Ireland games in there? Will Northern Ireland supporters go across there to watch it? It just beggars belief. And then again, bringing concerts, big stadia, concerts, comedians, they could sell out for that. But who's going to go into that? Who's going to pay to go into the stadium, which is glorifying terrorism? And,
well, Anto, myself and another man here that works in the background today, we had a chat about it, and he said to me exactly what it is that I anticipate and what it is that I foresee with this Casement Park. Is that, you see, as we just shown, is that they were glorifying Bobby's story there. They were celebrating the life of a murderer, of a man that was actually accused. And we have actually a clipping here from the Chief Constable of the PSNI saying that Bobby Story was arrested and Republicans were involved in a murder in 2015. But yet Mary Lou McDonald says that Bobby Story is our leader. That's what she said. And what we envisage is Casement Park will be built. And then, if not, the stadium name will be changed to the Bobby Story Stadium. There will be a major renaming of something, whether that be a cup, whether that be a league, who knows? But you can bet your bottom dollar that these people will be glorifying the life of Bobby Story, because you just seen what happened there, is that they have such control of that GAA ground that they were using the GAA ground to start the procession, the cortege of the funeral from inside the GAA ground, inside Casement Park, inside this place, which public money is going to be poured into whenever public money isn't available for other things, whenever people are waiting on waiting lists, whenever the housing isn't up to scratch, whenever, honestly speaking, this really beggars belief. And again, I ask this question, this is a serious question, and this has to be talked about. Well, what are our politicians doing? What are they doing? How are they dealing with things whenever every time that we see that there is, look, I'm going to say something. The Irish language, there's a lovely state-of-the-art Irish radio station at the bottom of the Falls Road. We've been in it, myself and a friend. We were invited into it, and it's state-of-the-art. And I argued at the time, well, where's the British Unionist station that people like myself and Anto and others could be broadcasting from? Where is our state-of-the-art radio and media centre? Well, we won't get that, but Republicans will. And what are our politicians doing whenever that is the case? And if you're a unionist politician, I ask you to scratch the surface and to ask yourself some serious questions. And the serious question has to start with, what are your leaders doing? What are they doing? Are they rolling over? Are they permitting all this to happen in a way that sooner rather than later, British unionism will be no more in Northern Ireland? We will be the underdogs. We are not being enhanced in any way, shape or form. And, it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable that we have political leaders who won't actually stand up for the cause of British unionism here in Northern Ireland, and they permit these type of things to happen. And most importantly, Anto, especially whenever these things, whenever they add insult to the injury of the victims of these IRA killing machines, because that's what they were. They were total killing machines. So what I want to do, Anto, is that we want to move on to our next subject. We'll stay for a while. We came here to do a few subjects, and we may as well actually do them whilst that we're here. And I've one other, so we're now going to go on to, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I usually do, people, but I'm going to add something else to the bag of advertisements on this time. So, okay, so take a look at this here, okay? So air sterile, we call this here. And this is a little machine. Now, let me explain to you what this machine is, right? And a friend of mine in Scotland, he's the rights to Scotland, Northern Ireland, and also in Ireland for these things, okay? And we've all heard of COVID and viruses and so on. Well, this is a little machine that what you can do is you can put in a domestic setting in your own house, and this will remove 99.9% of all viruses from all surfaces from within a room. And it plugs in and it just works constantly. It'll also remove odors. So, I thought a good use for this here would be maybe if you have a parent where there's care workers or health workers or anything coming into the house, it means to say that if anything is brought in, this thing will actually work like a HEPA filter in a plane, and it will zap the viruses. So they're not that dear, even for a domestic setting. I think it works out at £222 plus the VAT. So there we go. This is this little thing here. There's Mervyn Campbell saying they're all buying houses in England. Anyway, but look, this little machine, what we'll be doing is we'll be popping that up onto your shop. Also, we'll be selling these here in Northern Ireland. So I'm just showing people this little machine, that it is a good machine. If you have a business, if you have a restaurant, if you have a solicitor's office, a doctor's surgery or whatever, this little boyo here would work. Or let's not be sexist. This little boyo or girl, whatever way you want to call it, would be good at actually sucking up all viruses from within a room. So there you go. We're going to be popping that on our shop. I'm going to be doing some advertisements for this here. But it's a wonder machine, and it doesn't just doesn't do COVID, but it does colds, flus, viruses of any kind. So there we go. That's that out of the road, and just two other wee things that I want to do whilst that we're here. Okay, people, and this is the point where I would say, before we move on, but don't go anywhere. Please stay with us, because we have two more very, very important subjects to cover before that we go. And please accept our apologies that we were late in starting. So I'm going to pop up a PayPal link onto our live chat there, and you'll find the PayPal link here, Restore UK on YouTube. You'll find it on Restore UK on Facebook. Also, you'll find it on the British Unionist People's Voice on Facebook. And look, if you would like to help our work, and you can see that we do work in a way that we actually do uncover things that other people aren't talking about. And I think that we do it very well with the help of the people in the background. And it takes a lot of time to put these videos together, to research the information and whatnot. And why are we doing it? We're doing it in order that what we can do is we can shame our British Unionist politicians into getting getting up off their knees and mounting a meaningful, proactive fight back in a way that would defend, protect, and enhance British unionism. So if you can help our work, and you also know that what we do is that we buy banners, and we've actually passed these banners out around the country, but only from your help, or with your help, are we able to do that. So if you could help us in any way, if it's £1, £2, £3, £5, £10, as I keep saying this, as people put £100 in not too long ago, please click on that link and please help our work. And you bet your bottom dollar you will see some very, very good work coming in the very, very near future, because we've got some very, very good guests coming here on Restore. And there's one other one that I want to do, and you know that we do this anyway, so I'm just going to copy this link, copy link address, and I'll talk as I go. And it's just got to get this out of the road. So I'm going to pop up another little link here into the live chat, and here we go. There's a live chat. And I'm just going to talk a wee bit whilst I'm talking about this, or popping these up, is that we had a wonderful time in Ballymoney in County Antrim on Friday evening whenever we went to see Christie, and we were with a lodge, or the Apprentice Boys of Derry from Inverness. They were there. They were in the event that we were there, that we went to. And we met a lot of good friends, and if there's any of those friends on our screen, please do pop up. Make yourself known. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to the screen, please give us a like, give us a love, ensure that you do that so that we can get to invite you to our channel. And this little link here, Ko-fi.com, that's on YouTube, on the British Unionist People's Voice, and also on Restore UK. If you can click on that link, and I just have to do this so that people understand what it is that we're doing, if you just bear with me. On that link, what you'll find is you'll find t-shirts like the one that I'm wearing. You can purchase those t-shirts from there, and also you'll find some badges. You'll find some Operation Banner badges, and also some Restore UK badges. You can purchase them from that shop. Also, look, we're going to be popping that air purifier up onto our shop, and also they'll be on sale from there. So if I don't know, you maybe know someone that has a business, or someone that has a mother that they want to look after, or a father being elderly, this little machine will work in the background to ensure that they stay safe. So we're going to pop that also up onto your shop. So ready for moving on now that we've got all of that done. It took a wee while to do that, but I went over it as fast as I possibly could. So I'm going to go to the comments here, and we're going to remove this down. So, John, this is Isabel from Isabel Montgomery. Let's just deal with that. Do you remember the Loyalist radio station on the Shankill? Yes, I can remember several times there was a Radio Shankill, Isabel. And really what we do need is, but none of these things ever stay in place, but yet we have at the bottom of the Falls Road a state-of-the-art radio and media centre. And, we've been in it with the studios, and there's nothing that they want for. So where is our British Unionist Media Centre for here in Northern Ireland? That's exactly what we need. And Jim's actually just popped something up there. For those that the T-shirts were ordered for, Jim was in Belfast today, but they're not ready yet, and they will be in another few days. Sorry for the delay, and it's beyond our control. And again, to the lady that has to get the blue T-shirt, it's absolutely my fault. Look, I'm going to post it tomorrow at some point to you. I said that I would bring it down to you, but I actually will do that there. There you go. So, and again, my man from that sells these machines, there will be a small delivery charge of $14.95 for postage and package for the machines coming from, coming from Scotland. So there we go. We've done all of that. So what we're going to do now is that we're moving on, and we're moving on to go to our next subject. Now, this is a big subject. And this is a big subject where I want people to listen very, very carefully. Just last week, last Wednesday, we had a man called Alex Easton on our channel. And whilst we were talking to Alex Easton, I thought personally, and you'll see me in this little video clip, where literally he brought tears to my eyes because of what I perceived was the honesty of the man. And, and there's a comment from one of the people on our live chat whenever they said, that, no one has ever talked to us on that level, on our level, the level that Alex Easton actually addressed Restore UK and the people on the live chat last week. So what we wanted to do is that we actually want to highlight what it was that Alex said. And listen very, very carefully as we go on. And that again, this is me trying to further, I guess, for the understanding for the people that is on this live chat. I mean, you mentioned the protocol there, and you mentioned that the way that the mainstream political parties, the party political machines, were dealing with the protocol. And you said that, you know, you seen that there were certain things that was happening. And then we went on to understand, say, for example, that the Secretary of State actually changed parts of the Belfast Agreement to allow the protocol to come into being. And I know that there was a vote in the Assembly, Alex, and it was the vote whereby that each and every MLA actually voted in a particular way to permit the mechanisms that would actually breathe life into the protocol. And there were two people that didn't actually vote for that. And I'm going to come off the back of this with a question for you. The two people were Jim Allister and Jim Wells at the time, and each and every person in that assembly, including yourself, Alex, is actually voted for those mechanisms. Now, this isn't an attack on the DUP, but this is me just asking, I mean, how were you sold that? How were you sold? I mean, you did obviously go along with the party. I mean, was it necessary? You know, is there anything that you could say and why that you would have voted at that time when Jim Allister and Jim Wells didn't at that time?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to apologise for the way I voted, but when that came up, you know, the sheet of paper you were given didn't show you all these different regulations on them, so it didn't even mention how many regulations there were. And when I queried that, and I asked one of the DUP SPADs, because I knew it had something to do with it, and I was given this assurance that it was keeping us in line with the rest of the United Kingdom, and there was absolutely nothing to worry about.
I would just like to add a bit of commentary on that. And, you know, you heard Alex there, who's been open and honest, and saying that he was handed a piece of paper by one of the DUP SPADs. And whenever he was handed this piece of paper by a SPAD, notice what Alex said. I wouldn't pry into Alex's business, and I wouldn't ask him who the person was. But he went on to say, he says, well, there's nothing to worry about. And, you know, by voting for this, we're keeping us in the United Kingdom. Now, how wrong was that SPAD? And by extension, whenever you listen to how that it was that Alex had been told things, you know, does the DUP hierarchy, do they know what a SPAD was telling all MLAs in order to get the MLAs to vote to breathe life into the constitutional changing protocol, to breathe life into the fact that the people in Northern Ireland, that they should be separated from the rest of the United Kingdom, separated from your brothers and sisters in England, Scotland and Wales, and having not been afforded the same democracy as the rest of the United Kingdom. The DUP can't wash their hands off this. And here we have a clip which actually says that one of the SPADs, the special advisors in the Northern Ireland Assembly, it wasn't a she, it was a he. Now, we do know that in the executive office there was a SPAD, a special advisor, who was a girl, who was called Emma Pengelly. And there's another name that springs to mind. It's a guy called Lee Reynolds. Remember that name, Lee Reynolds? And I wonder, is that the SPAD that swindled Alex Easton and other MLAs into voting for something that was actually going to do Northern Ireland a great deal of harm? This is very, very serious. This is something that has just been unfolded here, that whenever I listen back to the words, I couldn't believe what I just heard. Now, I'm going to take my hat off to Alex Easton for apologising that he voted in a particular way. And also, I'm going to take my hat off for the reasons that he told, as people would have said, he came down to our level and he was very open and honest with reference to what is going on behind the backs of the British Unionist electorate here in Northern Ireland. DUP SPADs are conspiring to swindle the MLAs, and by extension are doing a great deal of harm to Northern Ireland's constitutional position within the United Kingdom. Now, I intend personally to pursue this. I intend personally to send this video clip to the DUP main office, and I'm going to ask if this is what a SPAD acting on behalf of the DUP had done. I'm going to ask them to justify doing such a thing. I'm going to ask them to justify breathing life into a constitutional changing protocol, a thing that will ultimately destroy Northern Ireland if it's not finished, if it's not removed, and removed for good. And the longer that this protocol sits here, the longer this protocol will bed in. And right now, what we are seeing before our very eyes is that we are seeing the reorientating of goods which are normally fed by the UK internal market between England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. We're seeing a barrier having been put in place at the request of the EU and of the insistence of the Irish government. We see a barrier being put in place between us and Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. And yet here we have a DUP SPAD potentially linked to the Executive Office. And Lee Reynolds, that's the name that springs to mind for me. And we really need to find out if this is the case, if this is right, who gave Lee Reynolds the authority to swindle the MLAs, to swindle the vote, and in a way that the protocol would be permitted to come into being? Who knows about this? Who's going to take ownership of this? Who is responsible for what it is that Alex Easton has just told us? We're going to play on.
It had gone through the DERA committee, and our representatives didn't raise any issues with it. And I was led to believe that there was nothing whatsoever to worry about with that. And I trusted what I was told, and I made a mistake. And that's how it was sold to me, and I can only apologise. But it won't happen again, I can assure you.
Yeah. And in later times, Alex, whenever you began to realise and you begin to see, and then you understand through court cases that is happening right now, that the active union actually was altered, and in parts of the Belfast Agreement were altered in order to permit this to happen. Did that form part of your decision to think that you don't want to be in the position whereby you have to do things like that again? Is that a reason why?
It was part of it. When you're in a party, you have to take the whip, and sometimes you vote for things that maybe you wouldn't want to. And anyone who's maybe noticed the last year, I did have a wee bit of a rebellion off and on. So that was brewing, but I'm my own man. I didn't want to let my people down, and I don't want to vote for anything to do with the protocol that's going to weaken our position within the United Kingdom. It's just not on. It's not me, and it's not acceptable. And now I'm in that position where I can make my own decisions, and nobody can bully me into doing something that I don't want to do.
So there we have an honest man sitting in front of us, as some people would have said, coming down to our level and actually speaking to us, on the level, and telling us exactly what happened and what happens within DUP hierarchy, between the relationship between the DUP hierarchy and the MLS. And again, let me just emphasise here is that Alex Easton is a genuine, decent man who I believe has actually done the right thing by resigning from the DUP and by going independent. And as you hear Alex just saying there, that he couldn't really, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he couldn't have it on his conscience that he was going to have to potentially do things that would harm his electorate in the future. So, nothing that we would ever say or do is intended to harm Alex Easton, because Alex Easton has done the right thing here. He has actually told us why that it is that he went independent, and he has told us that a DUP spot actually swindled him. So really what our aim is to try to find out why that a DUP spot would do such a thing, most especially when to do such a thing was placing the Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom in jeopardy, and by extension, placing the United Kingdom in jeopardy. And you've heard that from successive people like Ben Habib, who said that, John, the United Kingdom has already been broken up since January. And now that we know that the Nicola Sturgeons of this world and the people in Wales, well, they're seeking to have the same deal as Northern Ireland, which would effectively break up the United Kingdom. So we have a SPAD within the DUP who has swindled the DUP MLAs. And really all I'm wanting to do is to find out who was this SPAD and who gave them the authority to do this. Because I can tell you that no British unionist here in Northern Ireland would give that authority to any of their elected representatives to do in their name. So I'm going to start by saying, not in my name. And if you would just like to, the people in the live chat, if you would like to tell me whether this was done or whether you give your authority to this, if it's in your name or if it's not. So let's just play on and we'll listen to the end of this here, and then we'll go to Anto for a bit of commentary, and then we'll go on to our very last subject. So we've been here for quite some time. We had the mishap at the start with the videos, but you can see we put a lot of time and effort into making this evening's show, and I was able to do so because I got a night off on Monday, and then I spent some of Monday, some of Tuesday, and some of today actually putting all this together along with others. So we're just going to finish off what Alex actually has said here. Alex, if you read that on the live chat there from Stephen Anderson, this is the first time any unionist politician has spoken to us on our level. Excuse me, you've got me tearful. I find that very refreshing, because that is the reality, is that there's not very many people that are willing to admit the mistakes. But again, I'm saying to the live chat right now, this is why Alex Easton is sitting in front of you as an independent, is because that he didn't like the things that he was going to have to do or potentially going to have to do, perhaps in the future. And again, I'm asking you to listen to this man's words, because we need more Alex Eastons within British unionism right around this country. So there you go, Anto. I mean, that's very, very serious. That's a very serious thing for anybody to say. And, the man was actually just telling why that it is that he felt uncomfortable, because Alex Easton gets a good name. And I've known Alex for a while on a personal basis. Also, I've known of Alex for longer than I've known him. And, why did I know Alex? Know of Alex is because people like Georgia Bickerstaff, who's just on our screen here, people in Bangor, people like, Austin Lennon, people like, there's lots of names that I could mention, and they always spoke very, very highly of this politician. And the reason why that they did was because that the man actually works tireless for and on behalf of his electorate. And he's very, very well respected right across the board. And, and what did he say? He says, well, I want to be able to do things in a way that I'm not going to be bullied to do things which will harm my electorate. And, and again, I choke up when I say that, because that's what's missing out of British unionist politics here in Northern Ireland, Anto. Anto, if you would just like to give some commentary on what you've just heard there.
Yeah, I remember that night Alex went on, and I spoke to Alex. I went and seen him actually just before that. I had a good chat with him. It doesn't surprise me, to be quite honest, that spas do certain things. It's who given the authority, what's the agenda, what's the bigger picture. And that's what's wrong with British politics in total, is representative politics. because parties will whip people into place. And there's not many brave politicians like Alex who will say, no, I'm not dealing with this. I can't do my job. I can't represent my people properly. So he resigned from a party, and now he's an independent, and he can do and make his decisions for the good of the people. And that's what my politics is about, direct democracy. An independent person standing is a form of direct democracy. They're working for the people, not a party. And Alex done a fantastic job in my eyes, and walking away from the DUP and saying, no, not in my name, not my constituents' name, will you bully me or whip me into a place where I do not want to go. We need more independent candidates. We need direct democracy, in my eyes, where the people have control of politicians, and that the politicians thinking they're in control of the people. They are our servants, and Alex is a servant to the people and serves the people proudly, very, very well. He's my local MLA because I live in Malaya, and I went and met him the first time for a week or so ago there. I made an appointment to see him, had a fantastic chat with the guy, and outstanding. And anybody I've known in the area since I've come home and I've talked to him about Alex, they've nothing but respect for the man. As you say, he's tirelessly on the road, knocking on doors, not just during election time, but after it, making sure his constituencies are being served. And that's what, to me, what politics is about. He's passionate about his people. He's passionate about the community he serves. And the DUP just happened to be the party he was in. We're whipping him into place to say, this is what you will do, because our party's going to do A, B, C, and D. His people didn't vote for that. His constituents didn't vote for that. If they're going to make a change to the Constitution, then the people should have a say, and the people should be told about it, and they should have a vote on it if they want to change it. And if people say, yes, we're happy with that change, a small referendum will take 6 weeks to sort out. You set down the parameters for that. If you get 51% plus on the vote, if that's what's agreed, then it happens. If the people say no, then it's no. You don't change the Constitution without the will of the people. And I take my hat off to Alex, and he's a fantastic politician.
And here at Restore, I mean, we're going to get behind Alex in every way, shape and fashion that we can, because, you know, I honestly believe from the bottom of my heart that we need more politicians just like Alex Easton in place. People that are willing to put the electorate before the needs or the wants of a party political machine. And again, I'm going to take my hat off to him. So I'm just going to actually quote here right now, is that Isabel, do you not remember, this is from Ann Wilson Dixon, Isabel, do you not remember Lee Reynolds had the audacity to stand again in an election against Mr. Jim Molyneux? I think he was Sovereign Grand Master of the Orange Order. Yes, Anne, absolutely, and I know of that too, and I know that Lee Reynolds would have been used in many ways in the past for various things, and we could sit and we could list them here. But what I want to do here right now is that I mentioned that name, chose my words very intentionally, is because, you see, I know that there were two people floating around, and if it was Lee Reynolds, well, we want to know why Lee Reynolds done, and if it wasn't Lee Reynolds, we also want to know who that it was, because Alex did say he, and we want to know who that he actually is, because that man on his own, if he went on a lone wolf, if he'd done it on his own, and I don't believe that he did do it on his own, I believe that he'd done it with the blessing of Arlene Foster and co, whenever that happened. But if he'd done that on his own, well then we the British Unionist electorate here in Northern Ireland, want to know why. So there's serious questions, very, very serious questions to be asked of the DUP, and we'll be asking the serious questions after that it was that we done this evening. I'm intending to get that video off to the DUP press office, also to Jeffrey Donaldson, to Emma Pengelly, and anybody else that I can deliver that to. And look, not in a way that I want to fight with them, but all I want to do is I want an answer to that question. Why would a DUP SPAD actually seek to swindle MLAs? That is corruption to its core. That is worse in my book than RHI. That is worse than Red Sky. That is worse than NAMA. That is worse than all of those things put together. Why? Because we're British. We're British. We're part of the United Kingdom. And that very swindle is the very thing that got those MLAs to breathe life into, quote unquote, a constitutional changing protocol. And all this nonsense about triggering Article 16. Article 16 only causes the circumstances whereby that the bits of the protocol that isn't working too well and needs oil on them, well, they can be looked at. Article 16 to be triggered is absolutely no use unless it is backed up by the fact that we will not be working within this protocol until it's gone. We're just simply not going to be working within this protocol. That's what has to be said. It has to go. It has to go completely. It doesn't work for British Unionists. It separates British Unionists from the rest of the United Kingdom. It separates us from England, Scotland, and Wales, and in a way that ensures that there's no border on the so-called island of Ireland. Why is that fair? Why is that permitted? Why do our DUP? Now, here we go. Are you ready? This is where I'm leading to. Why are our DUP collaborating? I remember those words. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Why are our DUP collaborating with those that seek to remove us from the rest of the United Kingdom? Why are they collaborating with our enemies to finish Northern Ireland? That's a question. That is a real serious question that really needs an answer. So maybe we were right when we put that banner up just a few weeks ago asking, are the DUP collaborators? With a question mark. Because it was a question. Because the more that I see, the more that we scratch the surface, I begin to wonder, are those people really on our side? So we're looking for some answers from the DUP. And even what we will do is we'll cut this section of this video out and we'll send the DUP this too. So people get behind us. Keep supporting us, keep funding us to do this here, and we will push. Imagine if we were working on this full time. We could hold these people to account like no one has ever done in the history of Northern Ireland. Anto, right, okay. Now that we've done that with Anne Wilson Dixon, here's what we're going to do. There's one from Lindy and Alexander Cole. When are the puppets back from their holiday? Well, we heard Jeffrey Donaldson talking about Afghanistan today, but we haven't heard him fighting against the protocol of late. Now, I do know that he's been using some fine words with some fine people, and I know that for a fact. And but words are not worth anything if those words are not being backed up with actual actions. We want to see actions. We want to see a meaningful, proactive protest made against this protocol, because for the longer this beds in, it's going to be very hard to reverse. So what we want to do, you will get an answer, John, doubt it. You're probably right, Georgie, but we cannot let this go. We cannot let this go. We have to fight for this. We have to fight with them. If no one else in Northern Ireland are prepared to fight with these people for what they're doing, or what they're potentially doing in Northern Ireland, if everybody else wants to be swindled, if everybody else wants to have the rose-tinted DUP glasses on and think that they're doing the right thing for on behalf of British Unionism, if that's what you think, you're entitled to your opinion. But you see, I am backing up what I'm saying with evidence, and it's not an opinion. Here's the evidence. The evidence is sitting right in front of you, and we intend to follow up on the evidence that we have to seek an answer. And if we don't get an answer, we will be telling the people here on this live chat that the DUP are not willing to justify or stand over what it is that they're actually doing, or what it is that one of their members has done to swindle MLAs, to breathe life into the constitutional changing protocol. So here we go. Okay, there's one more. I believe a dirty deal has been done back in December 2019. Stephen, you are probably right. That's just as far as I can say right now, but you're probably right. New decade, new deal. New decade, new deal. Does that mean part of a new Ireland, maybe, perhaps? I don't know. But all these questions actually need answered. This is what we need to answer, and we need the DUP to answer them. And and if Jeffrey Donaldson wants to come and talk to us and tell us that we're wrong, we can show him the evidence that we have. And if he wants to say that we're wrong and prove in a conclusive way that we are wrong, well, we'll accept it. We're man enough to say, well, we got it wrong. We can do this. Anyway, let's move on. And one more thing to go, and let's just do this because this is what we came here to do this evening. And as you can see, it's a jam-packed show, and we did actually have a lot of stuff that we had to get over and to deal with. So I'm just going to remove Alex from the screen. But look, there you go. What an honest politician and a man that I have a lot of time for. And fair play to that man. I take my hat off to him for the way in which that he stood up for the people who elected him. And that's all that any of us could ever ask for from the people who we elect to serve and protect us. That is the way that a politician actually should be. Well done, Alex Easton. Okay, so now that we're going to move on to 2 video clips, and I want to play these 2 video clips. They're very short video clips, but they're very essential that we play these video clips. And I want to play these things in a way, and we've got them for the future too. I know this has been a jam-packed show, and I just wish that it hadn't went the way that it did at the start. But this is always what happens, Anto, whenever you've got a jam-packed show to be dealing with. So what I want to do now is I want to actually play this video clip from a man called Simon Coveney. Now, you all remember Simon Coveney. You know, that's the part of the Irish government. He's the man that's in charge, the minister in the Irish Department for Foreign Affairs. That is, remember, Simon isn't your friend. He's no friend of a British unionist. He's no friend of your politicians. He's no friend of the British establishment. He is no friend of the United Kingdom. Simon is, quote unquote, well, he's like his friend Micheál Martin, who wants nothing to do with the backward idea of sovereignty. And that is an actual quote from the Irish Taoiseach, is that he wanted to hand his country to the EU, and he wants to be an EU vassal, and he wants Northern Ireland as part of the Irish Republic, so that we can be an EU vassal too, so that we can be rule takers, so that we have no say over what comes our way, how that the services are overburdened, how that the entire system is overburdened. Let me give you a quote from Ireland. In January of 2000, and let me get this right, 2019. Was 2019 or was it 2020? No, in January of 2020, just before New Decade, New Deal, I remember addressing a crowd of people from the Irish Republic who were standing as independents, but they're genuine, decent, ordinary citizens from the Irish Republic who see the corruption from within their government, that see that their own government doesn't want Irishness to exist, that doesn't want, the Irish state to exist, that wants their country to be handed on to the EU, that are all out, as Micheál Martin would have said, that he wants nothing to do with the backward idea of sovereignty. He wants nothing to do with the right of the Irish people to have ownership of the land, and for the Irish people to decide what their politicians do for and on behalf of them. So this is the type of people we're talking about. This is your Simon Coveneys of this world. So remember that not only is Simon Coveney our enemy, but he's the enemy of his own people. And make no mistake, this is what this man is. So let me just play a little clip from Simon Coveney, and we'll hear him out, and then we'll make a little commentary, and we'll go on to Anto for a quick comment, and we'll move on to our next video clip, and we'll get this show closed very, very soon.
Simon Coveney says he has a huge problem with the UK government's proposals for dealing with the legacy of the Troubles. Mr Coveney told a Féileán Phobal event in Belfast last night that the proposals, which would see an end to Troubles-related prosecutions, would not allow victims and their families to move on.
And I've said this publicly, while I, of course, am working with the Secretary of State on legacy to try and find consensus, I have a huge problem with the approach that the British government is proposing to take. Because what they're essentially saying is that the avenue for justice through the courts in the context of a conviction and a prosecution will no longer be available. And instead, let's just focus on the truth.
I just want to make a comment there, and this is on the legacy process which is going through. And Anto, you're a good man to be sitting on the same screen as me for this, is because what we have is that we have, and Simon Coveney knows this full well, that the IRA terrorists, they have immunity from prosecution. They will never be charged. Anybody that has ever been aggressed against, that have been shot, that have been blown up, or threatened, or anything else, anybody that has ever came into contact and been in the receiving end of IRA terrorism, they will never, ever, ever, ever get justice. And you don't make any mistake about even thinking that they will, because they won't, because there's an unwillingness from the British government and all other participants within this peace process. There's an unwillingness to stand up against these people. For goodness sake, they shot 2 people in the markets, and it was suggested and proven, and this was the police assessment in 2015, that they said the Gerry Adams conglomerate, which is linked to Sinn Féin, which is linked to this same IRA, which was linked to Bobby Story, right? They shot 2 people in 2015, and it didn't matter. They have to be in the Stormont government. They have to occupy the criminal gang headquarters in Stormont in a way that they destabilise Northern Ireland, in a way that they get their own stuff enhanced, and we just shown that, and in a way that our own DUP and our own UUP, well, they don't care, because all they're interested in is keeping themselves in power. Well, that's what it looks like to us. That's what it looks like to me. And here you have Simon Coveney saying, oh, we can't close down from people getting justice. We have to keep that open. What Simon Coveney really means is that we have to keep the system open so that we can push to have people who came here to serve and protect the people of the United Kingdom. Even the Catholics that the IRA were killing, they came to serve and protect them. And yes, there were some things that went wrong. We know that. We're not here to say that there were not some things that went wrong. But the security forces, they all get prosecuted. The IRA walks off scot-free. And if you're a loyalist, you get prosecuted too. And this is the way that it goes, because these people, and again, I have to say this, and I talked to a veteran last night about this, and I got some, I'm privy to some information which is happening as a result of the legacy right now. And I anticipated that this would actually happen. And without getting into detail, I'm going to tell you right now that these people want to keep the court cases open so that British soldiers could be prosecuted. And I can tell you that in the Middle Ulster area alone, there are 50 cases which are cocked and ready to go, pushed by Republicans into place to go against loyalists if they were involved in any things against the Catholics, the Nationalists, or the Republicans. But we have a situation whereby Republicans will never, ever face justice for the things that they actually done. So ask me that if this is this right? Is this a fair process? And listen to old Simon here. He's arguing that things need to be held open. What about the Irish government coming clean on the things that they facilitated, on the things that they done, on the permitting these terrorists to escape across the border, permitting their arms dumps to be buried in Southern Ireland? What about them coming clean? What about getting some justice for the role that the Irish government had played in this dirty war that happened? Just listen to the rest of Simon Coveney. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to listen now to Irish America, and we'll listen to what they had to say, and then we'll get a few comments from Anto, and then we'll go to playing us off with a few patriotic tunes. So stay tuned into this here very, very carefully to listen to what it is that Simon has to say, and then we're going to go on to an American.
And people telling their stories and move on the back of that. I don't believe that's what will allow victims and their families to move on.
Okay, so that was Simon Coveney. Now, just to sort of finish the screen, because I'm really aware that we've been here for nearly 2.5 hours, and we didn't mean to stay this long. So we're going to now pop up another little video clip. Now, remember, the context for this being played is that I'm going to ask the question, should we as British Unionists trust Irish America? Should we place our trust in, anyone that would associate themselves with Bill and Hillary Clinton? Was the peace process, right, as in the words of Jim Verner's poem, the Belfast Agreement, it was a disguise. It was built for appeasement, swindle and lies. The peace is a farce. The IRA, guns are still there. And London's afraid of another bomb scare. And with hindsight, we can stand over those words. We can look back and we can actually say that the IRA appeasement process is actually the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. And who is it that facilitates it? Who is it that champions it? who insists that it cannot be broken, but yet it can be broken when it is protecting British Unionists, when it is protecting the constitutional position of Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom. It couldn't be broke whenever it was going to separate Northern Ireland from Ireland, but it could be broken whenever it was going to separate British Unionists from the rest of the United Kingdom. So the Belfast Agreement doesn't work for British Unionists. Just listen to these Americans and ask yourself a question. And then there's a very important thing that we have to say at the end of this, but ask yourself a question. Should we be trusting this Irish America to be the honest broker over legacy? Ask yourself that question when you hear this clip.
Former member of the Obama administration has warned that if the government pushes ahead with its legacy proposals, it will unwisely strain every aspect of relationships between the US and UK.
Your piece, which people can read on Forbes.com, it focuses very much on state forces. You mentioned paramilitaries only very briefly in this piece. They were responsible for 90% of the killings in Northern Ireland. Do you think the other organisations have done enough to bring that kind of truth?
No, I don't think anybody's done enough, but the government is a teacher. A government is the primary respecter of rights within any society.
It must be pointed out, though, that also Sinn Féin, the party that is linked to the IRA, is sitting in government installment.
Yeah, and they bear responsibility as well. I'm not dismissing that. The actions of the IRA and other violent extremist groups were deplorable and need to be acknowledged as well. But the government bears a special responsibility, and I would not say, as an outsider, there's been anything approaching a serious accountability for past action.
The problem is, you look at the past, and people have very different views of it. And sometimes that is what stirs up the anger and the pain. So, for example, at the weekend, we had Sinn Féin commemorating the death of a hunger striker 40 years ago. And then others pointing out that there was no mention from the party of the woman in her 20s who he killed in a firebomb attack on a clothes shop. And the reality is sometimes when you talk about these issues, it only pushes them further apart.
Yeah, I guess I disagree. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's absolutely true that these things linger and they divide people, bring them apart. But the idea that somehow if you take the issue of the past off the table, or you sugarcoat it, or you find some way to kind of avoid any kind of legal government obligation to allow both criminal but also civil actions, at the end of the day, those fears, those anxieties, that burning sense of injustice doesn't go away. Again, South Africa is a good example. Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they took it on head on. The government really acknowledged a long record of injustice and violations of human rights and the rule of law. If you take a 30,000-foot look, the British government has yet to do that in Northern Ireland, and they need to do that, and what they put forward doesn't accomplish that.
In your article, you make a plea to the Biden administration to oppose this. And Joe Biden is somebody who sees himself as Irish, yet the reality is there still has not been any special envoy appointed to Northern Ireland, as has been the case with past administrations. Do you think Joe Biden is showing an interest in these issues, or does he need to show more of an interest?
Well, I think he has a deep interest, as you say, both because of his own heritage, but more broadly, he has staked out a position in favor of human rights and democracy, and is very committed, as he has been for the last 20 years, to maintaining what's important about the Good Friday Agreement.
So this man, he's saying that Joe Biden, he's staked out his position based on democracy and human rights. Well, it's the human right. It is your human right. It is my human right to have democracy delivered in the same way as everyone else that votes in a democratic referendum, for example. But yet, what's this man saying? This man is going to go on to say that if the British government, if they don't back off and allow the IRA to have immunity from prosecution, and if they go and move to protect the British soldiers, he's now saying they'll have problems with trade deals and nothing will be off the table. So you see how that the Americans are actually bullying the British government, bullying Boris Johnson. Who remembers Obama whenever the Brexit referendum were coming around, where Obama had said, well, you'd be going back to the back of the queue. You know, there'd be no special favours. If you vote for Brexit, we'd not be giving you a trade deal. You know, these Americans are actually, they're blackmailing the British government, and Boris Johnson, well, he isn't man enough to stand up to them in a way that actually has integrity, and in a way that ensures that the victims of this IRA terrorism are treated in exactly the same way as the IRA terrorists. But here where the problem started. The problem started the minute that Tony Blair permitted the circumstances whereby Queen's pardon letters could be handed out, whereby these people were given Queen's pardons on the run, comfort letters, to say that they would not be prosecuted. So you make no mistake, the IRA have immunity from prosecution. Effectively, they have an amnesty if they're linked to the Sinn Féin machine. They have an amnesty, but no one else has. And here's the Americans. What are they doing? It's Irish America, by the way. They are insisting that British soldiers should be prosecuted and no one else should. And you know, if that happens, and if this raft of, or if this avalanche of cases which Republicans have prepared against the security services and against anyone that aggressed against the Catholics, the nationalists, the Republicans, or if there's anybody aggressed against them, Republicans and their legal teams are coming for them. And you make no mistake about that. You know, all that will seek to do is to destroy this country. And I would say that it would also seek to put a lot of people off in England, and in a way that they would say, well, you know, Northern Ireland's too much hassle. We want nothing to do with it. We're away. We don't want to be any part of it anymore. Why? Because our own politicians won't stand up against what is happening here. They won't stand up against Republicans. They permit them to spew their waffle, their lies, and in a way that the rest of the world, well, they listen to it and they begin to believe it. I think that they even begin to believe the spew that they spew out themselves. So let's just finish this here. We're going to go on to Anto, and we're going to then go to thank the live chat for bearing with us this evening. But there's been a lot of important subjects that has been discussed this evening. And let's just hear this American closing this down, and then ask yourself a question. Would we trust Irish America to be the honest broker, brokering a deal for and on behalf of those that are the real victims? I was speaking to one last night, someone that was blown up, wasn't actually killed, and I'm hoping to tell that story in the very, very near future. And there's been many people who really, their skin crawls when they see that these Republicans are being permitted to rewrite history and overseen by Irish America. So whenever you hear people in the very, very near future, and you mark my word, this is going to happen, whenever you hear people suggest that Bill or Hillary Clinton would come in as an honest broker to solve the legacy problem, what we need to do is that we need to go hard against our own politicians to insist that our politicians don't roll over like little nodding dogs as usual. Let's just play this.
And I do think I can expect, and I think everybody should expect, that if this bill goes forward, there will be a reaction from the U.S. government in saying, as I'm saying, that this is not consistent with the principles of human rights, rule of law, that were at the absolute center of the Good Friday Agreement, and that are now a bit frayed because of Brexit. And so I can imagine this will affect every aspect of U.S.-UK relations.
Anto Wicham, over to you, just to tell me what you think of what you just seen there. And then, you can address the live chat, and then we'll play a few patriotic songs, and we'll get out of here until the next time. Over to you, man.
No problem, John. To be honest, I don't blame the Americans. I don't blame the Irish Americans for their points of view, because they've only been told one side. They've never heard the Unionists say. They've never heard the truth. They haven't been told the real truth of the Troubles, because Sinn Féin went over there and sold them a pup. They've told them that, their version of what happened, and there have been them poor people, they've had to get this army up to defend themselves, so on and so forth. I blame our frigging politicians for not going over and selling our story and telling the truth. And then you've got the likes of the Clintons would be the ideal people they'd want to send here, because Clinton was there at the start and signing it and making it happen, shaking Jerry's hand while he'd give an order to go and plant a bomb in London. So they'll screw him up like a puppet. Personally, myself, I'm not for this amnesty, as it's called, because I didn't do nothing wrong. There is no new evidence, and a lot of soldiers and veterans that served here don't want it. We want a level playing field. We want the terrorists to be persecuted and prosecuted the way that they're after us. But that's not going to happen because of Tony Blair and the blood in his hands, because what he's done and give these letters out. And we knew nothing about these letters until a court case where your mom pulled them out in London. And then suddenly, well, where did this all come from? Again, our politicians were found wanting yet again, because they were laying in their own pockets. They were, oh, look at me, let's get down in history and make a name for myself. In my eyes, we got the Belfast Appeasement Agreement out of it, and we've seen nothing but unionists, people being trodden on and put down and told that you can't fly your flag. There's something going to come out about flags and when we can and can't fly them, and we can't do this and can't do that, and fires have to be a certain size, so on and so forth, and we'll have to obey that, or the police will come in and start attacking the community, so on and so forth. Our politicians have led us here with weak leadership, with no passion and not looking after the people. Now, if, and I know that the government are going to push this through, veterans today in London have given the backing to the so-called amnesty, that soldiers can't be persecuted. That's because there is no other way to protect us. It's not that we want it. There's no other way to protect us, because the IRA have got the get out of jail cards. None of them will be prosecuted. So to protect veterans, it has to be accepted. Now, that again, that boils me, because I am now put in the same box as a terrorist.
Andrew, if I could just say, right, now this is, if they get it right, they would have to do it in this way. They would have to say that, okay, that these people have immunity from prosecution. They've got the Queen's pardons, the comfort letters, and I know that I think they have to do a similar thing for and on behalf of the veterans. But at the end of the day, they need to find a form of words which is acceptable to everybody to ensure that it's there. That in no way, shape, or fashion are they declaring that the IRA were soldiers, for one, that the IRA was just, the IRA were murdering scum. That's what they were. They were nothing else. And that's what they need to do. That's what they need to do.
They make it clear, because at the minute, veterans feel, especially ones that live here in Northern Ireland, that they're put in the same box as a tourist. The IRA's campaign was legitimate. They're soldiers. They can march the street in pride, and Sinn Féin will want this to happen. They can march and have parades in the City Hall to glorify their murderous colleagues who went on their so-called missions to murder people, or try to attempt murder people themselves, or murder British soldiers or policemen, land and soft targets in their beds. These people want to glorify that. These people want to have parades in the future through the city centre and make heroes out of them. That cannot be allowed. And this has got to make sure that this never happens. If this goes through the way it is at the moment, because that's what will happen. I believe that's what will happen. And then we're lost, because I'm in that box. And as you say, if they can get the wording right, and make sure that the terrorists cannot glorify what they've done, Sinn Féin cannot rewrite the history, then, yes, then we've got to be protected. I feel it's the only way they can protect us, to make sure it doesn't happen, because we know what's coming down the line. I said I'd rather have my day in court and stand there and face a judge and my peers and say, I did nothing wrong. I served with pride and honour. I wasn't in the shadows waiting for someone to come past and murder them, and I didn't call myself a soldier if I was one of those. They committed murder. They were terrorists. Why is people like Jerry Adams and his ilk not in The Hague for war crimes? Because they had targeted civilians, and that is a war crime. But no, they've been made out heroes. He's now a Granda on Sinn Féin channels selling freaking Easter eggs and freaking badges and shit like that, because that's all Jerry's good for now. But he should be in The Hague along with the rest of them. Yep, because they had targeted civilians and they murdered children. They put bombs on buses with children was on it. That is a war crime. And they never mind what they've done to the security forces. The amnesty, or they call it, it hurts me. But I know now what's coming down the line is the only way to protect veterans, because Sinn Féin and the IRA, they have nothing to worry about. And they're out shouting now, it can't happen, because they have other things down the line which we know is coming out, and that's why they don't want it. Because if it is put in place, what they have got will never happen.
Yeah, definitely. Andrew, listen, thank you very much for coming along. Thanks for your insight into Afghanistan. I mean, you've educated us all with reference to Afghanistan. You've actually shown that there are very, very good people that needs to be taken out of Afghanistan and needs to be brought here and needs to be catered for, because, you know, at the end of the day, they helped, you know, yourselves whenever you were in Afghanistan, and we would be silly not to try to protect those people. And again, we've talked about the Gurkhas. We're just going to recap the Gurkhas. We're still following that, and we will be talking about it the next time that we come along here. Also, what we did talk about this evening is the imbalance in terms of the GAA, and how that the GAA and how that the Irish language and how that everything that Republicans set their mind to, they far outstretch and outperform British Unionist politicians. And I asked myself a question: why is that happening? So that's a question for the DUP, for the UUP, for the PUP, and for everyone else that is in leadership today that is turning a blind eye to this, or maybe they're not turning a blind eye to this, but we'd really need to have these questions actually answered. So people, thank you very much for coming along. You did see Alex Easton. Alex Easton, watch this space. Is that we will we will be getting behind Alex Easton. You know, we'll deliver leaflets for him. We'll do whatever it is that we have to do to ensure that that honest politician is actually elected. And, you know, all the things that we did there, we showed how the Americans, the Irish America is pushing the Republican line, how that, you know, well, they weren't fair and wanting in the past when they were sending them guns, and when they were collecting through NORAD, and they were sending money to buy guns and bombs and sending guns to them. You know, all of that happened in the past, and do we expect any different today? The only thing that we can look at today, people, and remember this, is that Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton were never honest brokers in Northern Ireland. Never, and never will be. I'm just going to cite one thing before that we go here, is that on the site of the Enniskillen bomb, there's a place, they have named it the Clinton Centre. There was a girl called Aileen Quinton that we interviewed on the other channel, the Forgotten Voices Media, one evening. And Aileen Quinton's mother was blown up in the Enniskillen bomb. And I asked Aileen the question: how do you feel when you see that name over that centre, the Clinton Centre, on the site of the bomb which your mother was blown up in? And she says it absolutely disgusts her. And that's me paraphrasing. Bill Clinton isn't an honest broker. Whenever you hear them saying that they should bring Bill Clinton in to oversee the legacy and everything else to close this down and to get us back to a stable society and where reconciliation takes place, it's a one-sided push by these Americans, and we shouldn't have them anywhere near us. If problems are to be sorted out here in Northern Ireland, they need to be sorted out by the people of Northern Ireland. That's where ordinary people come together and they say to the destabilizers, not in our name. We don't give you the authority to do this in our name for too long. Have you been destabilizing this place, and you need to get off the backs of everyone. So Andrew, once again, thank you very much for coming along. And what we're going to do is that we're going to play us out with a, now whenever you said that Jerry Adams, just before close, he was selling Easter eggs. Well, look, we're selling COVID machines to remove, the clean people's air for them. So there you go. Maybe I need to grow a bigger beard and start hugging trees. As you do. Anyway, here we go. I was never in the IRA. Never. There we go. Got to watch it. I'm not liable for that there. But anyway, here we go. We're going to play us out, people. Thanks very much for staying along. Look, again, the numbers stayed pretty high throughout. Sorry about the mishap at the very, very start, but blame Jim Verner. Remember not to blame me. I will not take the blame under any circumstances. I'm only teasing Jim. Jim worked very, very hard, and he did actually get us some of the videos, at a later stage. So what we're going to do is that we're going to play us out. We're going to choose a song here, firstly, and then we'll play us out with one patriotic song and one little song. And I think that this song has to be played this evening. And the reason why that it does is because here we are in coming August, nearly September of 2021, and the constitutional changing protocol has been in place since January this year. And for each and every day, each and every moment, each and every week or month that beds in, it's going to be harder to remove. Yet none of our unionist politicians have done anything to remove it in a meaningful, proactive way. So we're going to play us out with this little song, which actually highlights how that it has been since that I have been allowed. And if anyone can say that your British unionist politicians are doing a grand job, well, I think that, you're going to need to go and maybe I shouldn't say that. You're going to go and need to have your head looked at, and I'm saying that very politely. I've had to choose my words there. So here we go. We're going to play us out with Nothing Ever Happens. Nothing happens at all, but they think this time the needle's going to return to the start of the song, and we're all going to sing along like before. We need to ensure that doesn't happen. Thanks very much for coming along. And if you'd just like to say goodbye, we'll be hitting this buzzer and this song will begin on.
Okay. Yep. John, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to come on as always. And it's very interesting tonight. And I just hope that, people realize that we've got to help these people in Afghanistan that helped us. And I understand the people's issues, whether they're here at home, not enough houses, but, these are human beings. And yeah, we've got to keep the good fight up for the veterans. We've got to keep the good fight up for us being part of the United Kingdom. The protocol has to go. That's it. As you said earlier, there's no point in triggering anything. All you can play about with is 5 and 10, and all that's going to do is kick it down the street. There's no point. It has to stop. Our politicians have got to grow a set. If they don't, then we've got to replace them, and that's the bottom line. And we need people that are independent people who cannot be whipped into place.
Anto, thanks again, once again. And people, let's here's me again. And I know I've been a bad boy lately. I mean, I wasn't broadcasting on Monday because I was away somewhere. And I'm actually going on business over the weekend here. And I won't be broadcasting on Monday evening, but because we will make it up to you on Wednesday, and we'll make it up to you with a good guest on Wednesday. So we'll not be broadcasting, remember, this Monday evening coming, as I say, I'm away in business. And unfortunately, this has to be done. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play us out with this song. And it's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Cheerio, people. Thanks very much for staying with us.
Good night.
Post office clerks put up signs saying position closed. The secretaries turn off typewriters and put on their coats. And janitors padlock the gates for security guards to patrol. And bachelors phone up their friends for a drink while the married ones turn on a chat show. And they'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow. Gentlemen, time please, you know we can't serve anymore. Now the traffic lights change to stop when there's nothing to go. And by 5 o'clock everything's dead, and every third car is a cab. And ignorant people sleep in their beds like the dope white mice in the college lab. And nothing ever happens, nothing happens at all. The needle returns to the start of the song, and we all sing along like before. And we'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow. Telephone exchanges click while there's nobody there. Martians could land in the car park and no one would care. And closed-circuit cameras in department stores shoot the same movie every day. And the stars of these films neither died nor get killed, just survive constant action replay. And nothing ever happens, nothing happens at all. The needle returns to the start of the song, and we all sing along like before. And we'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow. Advertise products that nobody needs. While angry from Manchester writes to complain about all the repeats on TV. And computer terminals report some gains on the values of copper and tin. While American businessmen snap up Van Goghs for the price of a hospital wing. And nothing ever happens, nothing happens at all. The needle returns to the start of the song, and we all sing along like before. And nothing ever happens, nothing happens at all. They'll burn down the synagogues at 6 o'clock, and we all go along like before. And we'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow. And we'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow. And we'll all be lonely tonight and lonely tomorrow.
Just across the Irish Sea stirs a heart of loyalty, raising honor and dignity, drives a will to keep us British free. Not alone are we on this journey, for in a land just across the sea is a hand that reaches out of friendship, and a bond that's lasted centuries. And its hands cross the water, reaching out for you and me, for Queen Ulster and for Scotland, help to keep our loyal people free. Let the cry be no surrender, let no one doubt our loyalty, reaching out to the brave red hand of Ulster is the hand across the sea. Help to keep our loyal people free. Let Let the cry be no surrender. Let no one doubt our loyalty. Reaching out to the brave red hand of Ulster is a hand across the sea. Just across the Irish Sea stirs a heart of loyalty, raising honor and dignity. Drive the will to keep us British free. Not alone, only on this journey, or in a land just across the sea. It's a hand that reaches out in friendship. It's the hand across the sea. It's the hand across the sea. It's a hand across the sea.
We didn't join Europe to be swallowed up in some bureaucratic conglomerate where it's Euro this and Euro that and forget about being British. We're British and we're proud of it. Proud of our traditions, proud of our national character.